The Vatican, known for its traditions of diplomacy, unity, and carefully calibrated public statements, found itself in an unprecedented uproar following an explosive intervention by Cardinal Raymond Burke, one of the most prominent conservative figures in the Catholic Church. The shocking moment came just 2 minutes before a scheduled Vatican press briefing, as word spread that Burke had launched a blistering public critique against Cardinal Luis Antonio Tagle, the highly regarded Filipino prelate often seen as a future contender for the papacy. The remarks weren't made offhandedly or leaked through rumor. They were deliberate, pointed, and broadcast in a carefully worded written statement released to select media outlets before cascading through social media and the Catholic press like wildfire. Burke's critique ignited a flurry of internal discussions, unofficial condemnations, and growing speculation that a deeper rift within the Vatican hierarchy had finally broken into public view. Cardinal Burke, long a figure of division due to his traditionalist stances and public critiques of Pope Francis, has been sidelined in recent years but retains a powerful following among conservative Catholics. His attack on Tagle, however, marked a significant escalation, targeting not only an individual but implicitly challenging Pope Francis's broader vision for the future of the Church. Burke accused Tagle of promoting what he called doctrinal relativism, a phrase heavily loaded within Vatican circles. In his statement, Burke suggested that Tagle's pastoral style, often characterized by openness, mercy, and intercultural dialogue, amounted to a dismantling of Catholic orthodoxy under the guise of pastoral care. The accusation was not only inflammatory, it was deeply personal. Burke implied that Tagle's influence over the dicastery for evangelization, a powerful arm of the Vatican bureaucracy, was leading the global church into confusion and theological decay. Observers were stunned by both the timing and tone of Burke's message. Cardinal Tagle, known for his soft-spoken demeanor and theological balance, has consistently avoided confrontation. Seen by many as a bridge between Eastern and Western Catholicism, Tagle has been instrumental in shaping the Church's global outlook, especially in Asia, where Catholicism is growing rapidly. His work in promoting intercultural evangelization, protecting the rights of migrants, and emphasizing pastoral inclusion has won him admiration not just from Pope Francis, but from bishops and laity across continents. But to Burke and his ideological allies, Tagle represents what they see as a dangerous drift toward modernism, a church too willing to compromise with the secular world and too lax in upholding traditional moral teachings. The Vatican response, though initially cautious, revealed the extent of internal unease. While no immediate official rebuke was issued against Burke, insiders reported a sense of betrayal and urgency among members of the Roman Curia. High-ranking officials speaking on background described the situation as destabilizing and deeply regrettable. One senior Vatican diplomat remarked, "We've seen divisions before, but rarely have they been aired in such an open and incendiary way." Another said, "This isn't just a dispute between two cardinals. This is about the soul of the Church and the direction it will take after Pope Francis." Privately, some Vatican officials are said to be urging the Pope to take disciplinary action, possibly stripping Burke of his remaining honorary titles or privileges, a step the pontiff has been reluctant to take despite years of provocation. The fallout among the global Catholic community has been equally divided. Conservative media outlets quickly picked up Burke's statement, praising him for his courage to speak the truth. Some traditionalist commentators even suggested that Burke was giving voice to a silent majority of bishops and priests disillusioned with the direction of the papacy. They framed his attack on Tagle as a necessary warning against what they perceive as theological erosion. On the other side, progressive and centrist voices denounced Burke's remarks as divisive, irresponsible, and damaging to the unity of the Church. Catholic social media lit up with debates, many expressing dismay that such infighting was occurring so close to the upcoming Synod on Synodality, a key moment when the Church is meant to reflect on unity, listening, and mutual respect. Cardinal Tagle himself, in a brief and measured statement issued the following day, did not address Burke by name. Instead, he reaffirmed his commitment to serving the Church through dialogue, compassion, and fidelity to the gospel. He asked Catholics to pray for unity and for the courage to listen to one another, even in disagreement. His response, characteristic of his humility, only seemed to highlight the contrast in tone between the two prelates. Tagle's supporters quickly rallied behind him, with bishops from Asia, Latin America, and parts of Europe releasing messages of solidarity. Several noted that Tagle's approach reflects not only the direction encouraged by Pope Francis, but also the lived reality of a global church facing modern challenges. Behind the scenes, speculation grew that the real target of Burke's attack was not only Tagle but the pontiff himself. By criticizing one of Francis's most trusted allies, Burke signaled his continued opposition to the papacy's reform agenda. Francis, now in his late 80s and showing signs of physical frailty, has moved decisively to reshape the Vatican bureaucracy, emphasizing missionary outreach, decentralization, and pastoral sensitivity over rigid doctrinal enforcement. Tagle has been central to that mission. Many interpret Burke's statement as a warning shot ahead of the next conclave, a message to the College of Cardinals and the global Catholic faithful about what is at stake when the next pope is elected. The eruption has also reignited long-standing debates over the role of cardinals in the public sphere. Traditionally, high-ranking clerics are expected to resolve disagreements internally, preserving the image of unity. Burke, however, has repeatedly challenged this norm. He famously submitted a set of dubia, formal questions expressing doubt, about Pope Francis's 2016 document Amoris Laetitia, effectively accusing the pontiff of doctrinal ambiguity. Since then, Burke has become a lightning rod, drawing both praise and condemnation. His supporters argue he is a modern-day defender of orthodoxy. His critics say he is undermining the papacy from within. Pope Francis, though slow to respond publicly to internal criticism, has on occasion signaled his displeasure with Burke's behavior. He previously removed Burke from key Vatican roles, including the Apostolic Signatura, and has at times appeared to ignore Burke's demands for clarification. Yet Francis has also stopped short of formally censuring the cardinal, perhaps fearing that doing so would elevate Burke's martyr narrative among disaffected conservatives. Whether that calculation will change in light of this new attack remains to be seen. Sources close to the Pope say he is deeply saddened by the situation but continues to place his hope in dialogue and reconciliation. Beyond Rome, the episode has exposed the ideological tensions that simmer beneath the surface of the Catholic Church's global structure. In Africa and parts of Eastern Europe, bishops have voiced sympathy with Burke's critique, albeit in softer tones. In Latin America, North America, and large parts of Asia, the mood leans strongly in favor of Tagle, whose background as a pastor from the developing world gives him a natural rapport with many clergy who feel marginalized by the old European-centric model. These regional divides, already evident in past synods, are likely to intensify in the wake of Burke's statement. The timing of the attack could not be more sensitive, with the Church preparing for several major events, including the second phase of the Synod on Synodality and the 2025 Jubilee year. The Vatican is working overtime to present a united front. The eruption caused by Burke's words threatens to overshadow those preparations and could complicate efforts to engage Catholics who have grown disillusioned or detached from institutional religion. Vatican observers worry that if the conflict continues to escalate, it could damage the Church's moral credibility and distract from its core mission. As the dust settles, there is a growing sense that this incident will be remembered not just as a clash between two prominent clerics, but as a pivotal moment in the larger narrative of the Church in the 21st century. Will the Catholic Church embrace a path of reform, inclusivity, and global solidarity as symbolized by Tagle and the vision of Pope Francis? Or will it retreat into a more rigid, doctrinally defensive posture as championed by Burke and his allies? The answer may not be known for some time, but the lines have been drawn more clearly than ever before. For now, Cardinal Burke remains unrepentant, standing firmly by his remarks and presenting them not as an act of rebellion, but as a moral and spiritual necessity. He has made it clear through both interviews and follow-up statements that his primary obligation is to defend what he perceives as immutable Catholic doctrine. In his words, the Church is facing a grave crisis of clarity and fidelity, and he believes it is the responsibility of cardinals, regardless of the consequences, to speak up when they feel the faith is being misrepresented or compromised. His choice of the phrase, "in defense of the truth," is deliberate, evoking the Church's long tradition of doctrinal guardianship and casting himself as a custodian of that mission. To his supporters, this framing is not just powerful, it is deeply resonant, echoing centuries of theological struggle and echoing the battles of church fathers who once stood against heresy or secular encroachment. Despite increasing pressure from both inside and outside the Vatican for a more conciliatory tone, Burke has not issued any retractions or softened his rhetoric. Privately, sources suggest he views this moment as a defining stand, one that will be remembered as either vindication or martyrdom. He has reportedly received communications from bishops across Europe and North America, some expressing concern, others quietly offering thanks for his willingness to say what they feel constrained from expressing themselves. Burke's circle of allies, many drawn from traditionalist orders and conservative theological institutions, have amplified his message, warning that the Church risks diluting its teachings to the point of becoming indistinguishable from secular humanitarianism. In their eyes, the growing emphasis on inclusion, synodality, and pastoral accompaniment risks losing the core of Catholic identity, truth revealed, not negotiated. Meanwhile, Cardinal Tagle has taken a dramatically different path rooted in humility, silence, and pastoral care. His demeanor in the wake of Burke's critique has earned widespread admiration from many corners of the global Church. Rather than responding with counter-accusations or defending his reputation, Tagle has continued with his work, visiting migrant communities, presiding over liturgical celebrations, and attending working sessions on the future of evangelization. This quiet perseverance has only strengthened his image as a servant leader, someone more concerned with mission than status, with unity rather than ideological conflict. Those who work closely with him describe a man deeply affected by the public nature of the criticism, yet unwilling to allow it to distract from the responsibilities he has been entrusted with. Tagle's approach is emblematic of a broader ecclesial vision, one that emphasizes encounter over confrontation and dialogue over doctrinal rigidity. In his pastoral theology, truth is not abandoned but contextualized within the lives of real people. He often speaks of listening to the cries of the poor, the displaced, the disillusioned, those on the margins who feel left behind not only by society but sometimes by the institutional Church itself. His emphasis on accompaniment echoes the spirit of Pope Francis's pontificate, where mercy, discernment, and proximity to the suffering are elevated as essential dimensions of pastoral ministry. To many faithful, especially in the global South, this represents not a compromise, but a recovery of the Church's most Christ-like dimensions. That divergence between Burke and Tagle, one rooted in confrontation, the other in compassion, goes far beyond a personal or theological disagreement. It reflects two fundamentally different models for the future of Catholicism. Burke's vision leans heavily on clear boundaries, moral absolutes, and centralized authority. It seeks to preserve what is perceived as a sacred inheritance from erosion, regardless of cultural shifts or political pressures. Tagle, conversely, imagines a Church in constant engagement with the world, attentive to the unique circumstances of each person, and willing to walk with those whose lives do not neatly align with doctrinal formulations. This conflict, while centered on two cardinals, has implications for every level of the Church, from the Vatican Curia down to the parish pews. It influences how bishops lead their dioceses, how priests minister to their congregations, and how lay Catholics interpret their faith in everyday life. Already the ripple effects of the controversy are being felt in seminaries where future priests are being formed amid increasingly polarized ideological frameworks. Some are drawn to the intellectual clarity and perceived heroism of Burke's stance. Others are inspired by the pastoral warmth and global solidarity embodied by Tagle. As the Church looks ahead to the next conclave, a moment that will determine the successor to Pope Francis, these competing visions will almost certainly shape the selection process. The College of Cardinals, many of whom were appointed by Francis, will have to weigh not only the theological orthodoxy of potential candidates, but their capacity to hold together an increasingly diverse and divided global Church. In this context, the public clash between Burke and Tagle becomes a symbolic prelude to that more momentous decision. Will the Church double down on doctrinal uniformity and liturgical tradition, or will it embrace an evolving model of synodal governance and compassionate outreach? Even among ordinary Catholics, this clash is prompting reflection on what it means to be faithful in an age of uncertainty. In parishes, online forums, and Catholic media outlets, conversations are unfolding with urgency. Some faithful see Burke's warning as a necessary call to return to spiritual discipline and moral clarity. Others view it as a regrettable distraction from the urgent needs of the world, the climate crisis, rising inequality, the plight of migrants, and the alienation of young people from organized religion. The Church's credibility, they argue, depends not on tightening fences but on opening doors, yet what makes this moment especially poignant is the fact that both Burke and Tagle believe they are acting in fidelity to Christ and his Church. Their motivations, though shaped by different theological and pastoral frameworks, are grounded in sincere conviction. Neither man is a villain nor a saint, but rather a reflection of the broader tensions that define Catholic life in the 21st century. Their divergent paths remind the faithful that unity does not mean uniformity, and that disagreement, while painful, can be a sign of a living and dynamic faith. In the end, the outcome of this public rupture will depend less on who wins the argument and more on how the Church chooses to respond. Will it allow polarization to harden into division, or will it find a path forward rooted in shared mission and mutual respect? Will leaders be willing to listen across ideological lines, or will they retreat into echo chambers? These are the questions now facing a global community of over 1 billion people, led by a frail yet determined Pope, and shaped by figures like Burke and Tagle, whose legacies are still being written.